Hello, everyone. It's 2 o'clock, so let's begin. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on time, and welcome to Wild Apricot's monthly expert webinar. So, today we're honored to have Amanda Kaiser with us. Amanda is a membership engagement specialist for associations and nonprofits. Today, Amanda is going to share insights from over 400 interviews with members. And before we get right into the content, I want to just take a quick poll to see where everyone's at. What's everyone's biggest challenge with their members? So I'm just going to launch that poll for you and get your answers in. And then we will just quickly move on, and I'll bring Amanda on shortly. Okay, a little like 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Awesome. Thank you, everyone who participated. And great. So I'm going to be bringing on Amanda shortly, but in the meantime, let me introduce myself. My name is Sonia Kosla, and I'm on the Wild Apricot content team. Beside me is my colleague Stephen, who will be on the chat to help you with any technical issues you might have. So during the webinar, feel free to ask us any questions to us or Amanda, and to do that, you can use the chat box on the control panel. Now, I want to make a couple of quick reminders before we move on. First, I want to let you know that we are recording this session. So we'll be sending you an email with a link to the recording within the next couple of days or so. So watch out for that. And I also want to let you know that we are a CAE credit provider. So by attending today's webinar, you are eligible to earn 1 CAE credit. Okay, so we'll get going in just another couple of minutes, but let me briefly say that today's webinar is being brought to you by Wild Apricot. Now, I know that many of our customers are on with us today, so a big welcome to all of you and thank you for joining us. But I also know that we have many people here who aren't familiar with Wild Apricot, and I want to welcome you all as well. So for those of you who don't know, WildApricot is a membership management software. It's actually an all-in-one solution for anyone running a membership organization, and that's because you can manage your member and contact database, run your events, build your website, process all your payments, and so on. Many of our customers consider it a lifesaver because it saves them hours a day in administrative tasks, freeing them up to focus on fulfilling their organization's mission. And while we're quite thrilled with what many of our clients have been able to accomplish, we've watched many of them grow since we started 12 years ago, and they've watched us grow too. So, and thanks to all of our customers, we've been ranked as the #1 rated management software solution on the market 7 times in a row. And while we pride ourselves on helping people with great software, we're also a leading provider of free educational content, which you'll find on our blog and in webinars like today's. Now, if you have any questions about Wild Apricot, we're happy to answer them at the end of the webinar. So I'm going to take a quick poll so you can let us know if you would be interested in sticking around after the webinar. Okay, just going to launch that now for you, giving you a few seconds to get your answers in. Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, great. Thank you everyone else for participating in that. All right, so now let me bring on Amanda. Amanda Kaiser is the owner of Kaiser Insights, LLC, a qualitative member research firm. Amanda is a member engagement specialist for associations and nonprofits. To date, she has conducted over 400 one-hour interviews with organization members. Through these conversations, she comes to understand members' goals, challenges, and worries, and then translate these insights into strategies that exponentially improve member engagement. Today, Amanda is going to share some effective new ways to engage new members early and to engage them for life. So, without further ado, Amanda, take it away.
Fantastic. Let me get our presentation going. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much for that introduction. And hey, everyone, thanks for tuning in today. If your newest members are your most at-risk members, you are totally not alone. And the good news is there's some really not easy, well, somewhat easy, but not super time-consuming things that you can do, some very specific things that we can do to engage our new members and engage them for life. So I was looking over the results of that first poll that was launched, and it was really interesting because most of you said engaging new members and existing members was one of your top concerns, but also attracting new members. And this is, it all boils down to member engagement. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about engaging all of our members by engaging our newest members first. So let's get started by climbing into the hearts and minds of our members. I'm going to tell you a story that new members tell me very, very often. So I want you to imagine that you are a new member. You're also a new employee. You've just started at your organization, and you are new to your profession or industry. You've signed up for a conference, and you are going alone. So the day comes, and maybe you have to fight traffic across town, or drive a couple of hours, or jump on a train or plane, or spend the whole day traveling. However you arrive, when you get to the venue, you're a little exhausted. And when you get there, you walk into a conference hall or a hotel, and you start looking for signs to lead you to the location of the conference, but you don't see any. And for a moment, you wonder if you're in the right place, or if this is even the right day. Oh my gosh, it's Thursday, and what if the conference actually starts tomorrow? But after poking around a bit, you find registration. So you stand in line at registration, and soon it's your turn. And as you step up to the desk, the person on the other side looks at you and says, "Name." So you give your name, and then you wait. She starts flipping through the badge boxes. You're not in that one, so she tries another one. No luck there, so she asks you to spell your name, and patiently you spell out your name, and she tries again. And you start to wonder if you're registered. What will happen if you're not registered? But then she finds your badge, and she hands it over along with a program and a bag, and looks to the next person in line. Now, at this point, you're not sure where to go, so you step out of the line and you scan the area, and after a while, you see some people heading down the hall, so you follow them. Folks are heading into a meeting room, and as you enter the room, you see that it's packed to the rafters with people. You take a quick look around and see a small breakfast layout by the door, and you grab yourself a muffin and an orange juice and head back into the hall to sit on a bench. With your muffin on one knee and your orange juice on the other, you start scanning the program, and with a sinking feeling, you realize that the program looks like a foreign language to you. You circle a couple of sessions that sound sort of promising, and off you go for a day of learning. Now, as you're sitting in these sessions listening to the speakers, you notice that everyone is using acronyms and special words and phrases that you've never heard of. Now, it seems like from the speakers to the audience, everybody knows these terms, and you don't know the language yet, and you're feeling kind of behind and maybe even kind of isolated. At the end of the day, all you want to do is flee, but the guilty voice starts. You know you should go to the reception, but you really don't want to. You're not really a joiner, but here you are. You should see what it's about, and the guilty voice keeps saying to you, you should meet new people. Your boss paid for you to be at this experience. You should experience the whole conference. And with a sigh, you head to the reception area. As you approach the doors, you hear this loud din of voices. People inside, they're laughing and talking, and just hearing those loud voices is sort of anxiety-producing. But you step inside, locate the bar, order yourself a drink, grab it, turn around, and your heart sinks, because everybody is talking to somebody except for you. So what I'd like you to do right now is think about how you're feeling. You know, maybe it's a very lonely, maybe very awkward feeling. And in the research, and you can probably imagine this, people tell me that this is one of the worst feelings. So what I want you to do now is I want you to switch hats and put back on your association professional hat or your organization, nonprofit organization professional hat, and think about, as hosts, what could we have done to make this member's first-time experience better? Now, you might be thinking we could have welcomed them more, we could have helped them connect with others, we could have helped the attendee know where to go and what to expect. And if you're thinking all of these things, you would be right. We could have changed up the reception so everyone has something to do besides small talk. Yeah, networking is really, really hard. We're going to get into that later. Well, I would like you to imagine now a completely different scenario. I want you to imagine that you're a new member again, but you're a different member this time. And I want you to imagine that you are, again, coming to the conference for the very first time. You're new to your profession or industry. You're new to the organization. You're new to your job. But imagine now that you just stepped into the A through K line. You step forward and the person on the other side of the registration desk says, "Hi, hello, how was your trip?" And you say, "Fine." And they say, "Great, is this your first time at this event?" And you say, "Yes." And they say, "Fantastic, we have a ton of programming just for you. Now today is a huge day of learning. You're going to need to get fueled up. Breakfast is in ballroom B." They also go on to say, "Hey, you should know that everybody here is super nice. Just feel like you can talk to anybody." They point to the left where you're supposed to go, and they say, "I hope you have a really great day." Now, as they hand you your badge and your program, you think, wow, that was a really nice welcome. And with a spring in your step, you head toward Ballroom B. When you get there, you notice that the room is packed to the rafters. Now, you see a continental breakfast just inside the door, but you take some time to scan the room, and there toward the back, you see the real breakfast, big breakfast, hot breakfast. You head back there, and you grab a plate, and you fill it with eggs and potatoes, and you spend some time making yourself a coffee, and then you scan the room for a seat. Now, every seat is taken. But you see a table there way, way in the back with 2 open seats. You head on over and hover behind one of those empty seats and ask, "Is this seat taken?" And everybody at the table looks at you and says, "Oh, no, absolutely, please join us." After you sit down and start eating, somebody asks if this is the first time at the event. And you say, "Yes, it is." And you say, "You know what? I made a huge mistake, though. I didn't look at the program before I left, and I have no idea what to go to. What's good?" Soon, everybody around the table is giving you advice on topics and speakers that they like. When they were first new to this event, they talk about the topics that you want to see and the sessions you want to go to. And so you circle a whole bunch of the sessions. Soon it's time for you to go to the first presentation, so you all finish your breakfast and head off to a day of learning. Now, as you're sitting there listening to the speakers, you know a couple of things. You notice that people are using acronyms and special words and phrases you've never heard of before, but that's okay. That's why you're here. You're going to learn them all. Now, during the day, you meet lots of people at every single break and in the expo hall and at lunch, and everyone seems so, so friendly. And maybe it's because you're smiling so much, but it never seems like you're at a loss for somebody to talk to. Now, at the end of the day, there's a reception you can go to. And normally you're not a joiner, but everybody has been so nice. Maybe it'll be fun. So you head to the reception area, and as you approach the reception, you hear that din of voices just inside the room, which is a little anxiety producing. You step inside, locate the bar, order yourself a drink, grab it, turn around, and see a few familiar faces. You head on over and continue your conversation. So as you think about these 2 stories, both of these members are first timers. They're new to their organization. They're new to their profession or industry. They're new. They're very similar, but they had very different first experiences with the conference. Now, why is this? What caused the big difference? If you're thinking it's because how the person at registration welcomed them, you would be right. Members decide just in the first few seconds that they're at an event if it'll be a good event for them, which means that the decision happens not when they're networking and not when they're in the expo hall and not when they're listening to a great speaker and not when they're listening to the keynote. It happens at registration. Now, most of us in the profession think that registration is a transaction. You give me your name and I'll give you your name tag. But for members, it's more than a transaction. They need registration to be a super welcoming experience. When members are warmly greeted and welcomed, they will go on to make the event great for themselves. Now, this isn't just true for attendees and events. It's true for new members and membership as well. Warmly welcome a member, and there will be a better chance that they'll make membership great for themselves. Now, why is this? Well, it turns out it's all about first impressions. Our brains are first impression collecting machines, and I want to demonstrate this. So I want you to think of a super memorable time when you had a very strong first impression. It can be positive. It can be negative. It could have happened a year ago. It could have happened yesterday. It can be an interaction with any industry, company, organization, brand, person, product, group of people. It can be anything. So I want you to think about your first impression and your first impression story. When I give this presentation in person, I'll ask folks to volunteer for a few words about where they were when they were thinking of their first impression story. And people say they had their first impression on their first date with their spouse, or their first day of college, or walking into an Apple store, or starting a new job, or going to the dentist. And so I want to demonstrate the power of first impressions. You may have had this experience, or maybe not, but I hear this a lot too, going to the doctor, right? And you step up to the receptionist, and maybe she doesn't look at you or smile at you because she's busy doing something on the computer. You give her your card. She asks some questions. She never looks up. She never smiles. And when this happens to me, pretty soon I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what is in my patient file? I thought I was here because I was having a little cough, but maybe she sees something terrible. Maybe this is a terrible sign. Oh no. So, again, this is an irrational first impression. But all of this is to say that we have first impressions about all sorts of things all of the time, in very nearly every situation. And now what science has found out about first impressions are critically important. We're going to talk about the brain science in just a moment. But first, why are first impressions so important? Well, first impressions are important because they flavor the rest of your interaction with that company or organization or brand or person or product or group of people. And yes, with your members, with your organization too. Let me tell you another first impression story. So a couple of years ago, I went to Florida to speak at ASAE's Great Ideas. Now, my dad lives in Florida in the wintertime, and my thought was to come in a couple hours north of where Great Ideas was going to be, visit with my dad for a night, zoom down to Great Ideas, do my presentation, stay for a couple of days, and zoom up and visit with my dad again. So I did that. I flew into Jacksonville, visited with my dad for a night, grabbed my rental car, and then drove, I think it was 2 or 3 hours down to Orlando. And as I was driving down to Orlando, I'm in a suit, and I've got this fancy rental car, and I'm driving west away from the beaches, and I pull into a toll booth area to pay my toll. And the toll taker looks me over, and he gives me this wide grin, and he said, "So I can see that you're headed off for a day of swimming." I got to say, there's something about that really made me find Florida endearing. I guess I thought in my mind, completely illogically, that if the toll takers were willing to joke around with you, then Florida must be a great state. That was one of my first impressions of Florida. And I went on to have a wonderful trip. Now, that's the power of first impression. So let's dive into the science. But first, I have a question for you. How long do you think it takes to make a first impression? The duration is probably shorter than you think it is. Do you think it's 30 minutes or 3 minutes or just 3 seconds? Think about that for a second. Okay. If you said, a couple of seconds, you are pretty close. Even if you said a couple of minutes, you are really close. Brain science shows that we only have 3 seconds to make a great first impression. So in just 3 seconds, in a snap, we judge how likable people are, how smart they are, and what kind of leader they are likely to be. Amazing, isn't it? Just 3 seconds. I can almost hardly believe that. Okay, so in the face of facts later on, we have a hard time moving away from our first impressions. So I want you to imagine that you are walking down the sidewalk toward me, and I am walking down the sidewalk toward you. In just 3 seconds, you will look at me and you will judge how likable, smart, and what kind of leader I am likely to be. If I invite you in for coffee and we sit there for 45 minutes, we don't move very much off of our first impressions. Okay, so for our first impression experiences color our thoughts about a person, a group of people, a business or an organization, a brand, a product, for all of the subsequent interactions. And knowing this bias, businesses everywhere are now racing to make a great first impression. In fact, all sorts of industries are doing this by focusing on their first impression. And I'm going to talk about 2. So the master of first impressions is Disney. If you have ever been to Walt Disney World, will have experienced this. They don't wait until you're at the park. They start providing you great first impressions right after you booked. Now, if you're staying there on site, each resort is uniquely decorated. When you walk into the foyer, it's like no place you've ever been before. And then when you walk into each park, you know that you're not at any other amusement park. Even the transportation from the parking lot or from the hotel to the park is fun. It's interesting. It's like nothing else you've ever experienced. So you might be thinking, oh, okay, Amanda, this is nice for a multi-billion-dollar company, but what about my tiny organization? Well, small organizations can make great first impressions too. And I want you to think about your favorite mom and pop restaurant, okay? Think about that favorite mom and pop restaurant. The next time you are there, notice how they do what they do. In fact, this is some great homework that I assign myself all the time. As I'm out in the world experiencing restaurants and stores and parks and hotels and websites, or people are coming to my house to fix their refrigerator or something like that, I like to notice my first impression. And I take note of what I like and what I don't like. And start noticing this, start categorizing this, start thinking about them and remembering them in your mind, because you can translate all of this stuff and use these insights to help you create great first impressions for your members. Now, by the way, if you have any questions at any time during this webinar, please type them into the chat panel. And at the very end, I'm going to try to answer as many questions as I possibly can. Okay, let's switch gears for a moment. And I want to talk about another trend that's going on right now in associations and nonprofits. Okay. So in a minute, I'd love for you to help me out by answering a poll. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to imagine that I have a lot of money. Now, I totally don't have a lot of money, but imagine that I did. And imagine that I could buy you your dream vacation. Where would that vacation be? Would you be basking on a beach in some tropical island? Would you go on a cruise? Would you go to Europe? Or maybe adventure vacations are for you. Maybe you'd want to see the lava at Volcanoes National Park. Or maybe you'd like to climb Machu Picchu, or maybe you want to ski in the Alps. Whatever it is, I want you to think about your dream vacation. Do you have your dream vacation in your mind? It's fun to think about dream vacations, isn't it? Yeah, I love doing that. Okay, so I could buy you your dream vacation. Now, remember, this is a theoretical exercise because I don't have that much money. Or I could give you a similar amount of money and buy you a gift. Now, not a gift card, and I'm not going to hand you cash. But imagine if you wanted a gift, something, a computer, something. Do you know what you want? Now, let's go ahead and launch that poll, if we could. What would you prefer? Let's go ahead and select the following. Would you select a dream vacation or would you select a gift? Okay, let's give just a couple of seconds for everybody to get on there and vote. What would you prefer, a dream vacation or a gift? Okay, I think we're about there. So if we could go ahead and close that poll. What I am seeing here is 81% said a dream vacation or a gift. Now, I definitely want to tell you that there are absolutely no wrong answers. But what it seems to me is that what we're starting to value is experience over stuff. Now, like I said, there's no wrong answers. If you answered gift, you might have something on your mind, and that's totally okay. I just asked because I suspect that our society is going through a massive shift from stuff to experiences. And we see this in our lives all over the place. So let me go ahead and demonstrate some of this. Now, if any of you have been to a yotel, you're going to understand what I'm talking about. I think there's definitely a yotel in Manhattan, and I think there's yotels in a couple other places throughout the world. If you haven't been there, a yotel is essentially a hotel that's run by robots. But interestingly, it's about experiences. So their advertising is that our hotel is run by robots, and because we're run by robots, it's a much cheaper night. So if you stay in a yotel, I think it's about $150 a night in Manhattan versus about $400 a night at most other hotels in Manhattan. But this is the interesting thing. They're creating an amazing experience. So you walk into this teeny little lobby at the hotel, and you go up to a kiosk, and you actually registered yourself. There's nobody there at reception to greet you. There's just these kiosks. Now, if you are too early to check into your hotel room, the kiosk will say, no worries, the Yobot, which I'm showing you here, the Yobot will store your luggage for you and keep guard over it while you enjoy Manhattan. Now, the interesting thing about this is you can walk over to the Yobot and you punch in a couple of numbers and it comes on over and it grabs your luggage and it stores it in one of those drawers. And then it does. It just keeps watch over your luggage for you. Nobody can get at it. And so here I'm in Manhattan, in one of the most interesting cities in the world, and I spend 30 minutes along with everybody else in the little foyer with my face pressed up against the glass watching the Yobot, because it is a really interesting experience. And that's not all. I want you to think about some micro trends, and maybe you've heard of them. Tiny houses, minimalism, Project 333. Now, you probably have heard of tiny houses. There's been a lot of documentaries about this. It's essentially houses less than 800 square feet. They're super, super cute. Minimalism, it's reducing possessions to the absolute minimal amount of possessions. So, people with really, really clean apartments, beds that fold into the walls, just less stuff and less clutter. And what you might not have heard of, but it's another micro trend, is Project 333. Now, this might blow your mind, ladies. Imagine only having access to 33 items of clothing for each season for 3 seasons. And this even includes shoes and jewelry. Amazing. I think it's kind of amazing that people can do this. So I want you to think about what is common between all of these trends. Tiny houses, minimalism, Project 333. Why are people jumping on these trends? What's going on here? Now, if you're thinking to simplify, you would be right. If you'd be thinking to spend less money, you'd be right. And the underlying reason behind all of this is to make more time. They're simplifying, they're saving their money to make more time. And they're cutting down on expenses, and they're cutting down on the management of items so they can find more time and freedom to do the things they want to do, to have experiences, because it's all about the experience. And as a society, we're moving towards experiences. Now, I don't have a tiny house. I've got a pretty small house, but it's not a tiny house. I'm not a minimalist, although I think it would be cool to be one. And I'm not a Project 333er. But I do look at my friends, and I see in my family folks allocating much more of their household budget to experiences versus stuff. Less toys, more museums. Less stuff, more trips. More adventure, more experiences. Now, what we've become accustomed to in our personal lives, we come to expect in our professional lives. And I predict 2 trends for membership. So 2 trends that members need great first impressions. This is because of the focus on experiences with the internet and corporations. Members will demand that we too offer not just great value, but more and better member experiences. And the second trend is, as we start focusing more on these experiences, we're going to see it's important to get those first experiences right, because those first experiences pave the way for later engagement and retention. Now, if we don't start leaping on these trends soon, there's going to be some significant problems for our organizations. We're going to talk about this in just a moment. Now, I'd like to dive in just super quick to how it is that I have all of this information. And in the intro, I have done over 400 member interviews, and I see that my slide is actually a little bit out of date. So over 400 member interviews, if you do the math, it's something like 9 weeks of talking to members on the phone without taking a break. I'm up to like 29 research projects now for all different kinds of organizations, small organizations to large organizations, organizations throughout the United States and Canada and beyond, international organizations for all different professions and industries, causes and focuses. So lots and lots of research, and this is where all of this information is coming from. So what can I tell you about our new members? Okay, so why should we care about member engagement, and why should we especially care about new member engagement? So one thing that I've noticed in the research is that when new members do not engage, they get mad. And this is because they feel they made a mistake. They committed time, they spent money, and with that investment, they couldn't extract any value. Now, when a 7-year member doesn't renew, they might still love the organization. They received value, they had a great experience for many years. But when a first year or 1-year member doesn't renew, you can almost guarantee they're mad. These folks won't recommend the organization. They're not a candidate for word of mouth. In fact, if somebody else starts talking about the organization, they are likely to convey negative feelings. They're going to work against you. Now, by the way, anger is because the new member assumed that they made a mistake in joining, and no one likes to feel they made a mistake. And we certainly don't want new members to be mad, so let's dig in. What's going on there? Well, why aren't they engaging? Well, I think one reason is because the way we view the joining process and the way they view it is really different. So we tend to think about that first year as a linear 1-year-long cycle. They join at the beginning of the year, and sometime during the year they engage, and at the end of the year they renew. But for members, it doesn't feel like this at all. This is what it looks like to a member when they join the association. It's not a year-long process. Instead, the moment they join, they're already deciding whether to renew. When they join, they're super excited to see how the organization can help them, or how they can help the cause, or get more educated. But they're also anxious to confirm that they did not make a poor decision by joining. Now, some members make the decision to engage and renew in the first 3 days of membership. Can you imagine, just 3 days? Some make the decision to engage and renew in the first 3 weeks. And less often, some members make the decision to engage and renew in the first 3 months of membership. Now, it's important here to tell you that renewals at the end of the year actually don't help us to retain members. Renewals help us to remind members who are already going to renew that it's time to renew. They just serve as reminders. They're not mind changers, because new members are making up their minds very early in the year, very early in the process. So let's dig into this a teeny bit more and look at exactly what's going on here. This is the same path. They join, and then in 3 days, 3 weeks, or sometimes, but less so often, in 3 months, they will either ignore your organization or they're going to test engagement. I'm going to talk about why they ignored the organization later on in this presentation. But then if they test engagement, what happens? They might try a benefit, they might try to give you a call, they might try to email somebody. And if that goes well, then they'll engage. And at this point, they might decide to renew, or they'll engage again. And at that point, they decide to renew. But if it doesn't go well, then they'll start on that path to ignoring. And you can see that renewal period is way, way out there. Okay. So what's going on here? Why is engaging going well, and why did they decide to renew? Well, they want value, particularly value that's significant to them in their career right now or their interest right now. And they also want a great experience. They want to feel belonging. They want to have fun. They want to be wowed. Here's another way to think about value and experience. Okay. So one of the questions that people are asking, and it might be an unconscious kind of question, is, can you solve my problem? They're assessing your organization against this question. Do you have a solution for the problem I'm having right now? And the good news is we often do have the solution that a new member might be having right now, because so many other members came before them. We know what their problems are by career stage, or by interest, or by company demographics, or by donor demographics. And since they're often new members, are often new, there's something that incited them to come to our organization. They tend to have problems like many others have had before them, problems that are easy to articulate and easy to solve. So all we have to do is do some extra work to target this group separately with the right message and resources. But there's another question that they're asking themselves, and this one is totally unconscious. They're asking themselves, am I part of this club? Now, I use the word club very loosely, but what they're asking themselves is, do I fit in? Do people like me join an organization like this? Now, the question is, like I said, not usually explicit, but rather a subconscious question. In this question, they're saying, they're observing things and wondering how welcome do they feel? How polished and professional is the organization? Are they like me? How approachable are other members and how approachable is the staff? Are people friendly or not? They're also looking at the organization's materials, the websites, the signs, the brochures, and they're saying, is this organization as professional as I am? Am I proud to be a member? Okay, so with these two questions in mind, can you solve my problem and am I a part of this club? Let's talk about 3 ways to engage members early, because like we've been saying, if you engage members early, you engage them for life. And this really gets back to the very, very first poll. When you can attract members better if you have a more engaged membership, because it's your most engaged members that will do the word of mouth thing for you. And you can engage, when you engage new members, you engage existing members, as they progress through their whole member lifetime, there'll be more engaged members if we engage them early. Okay, so let's start talking about those 3 strategies. Strategy number 1 is learn if you have an association value trigger point, learn if you have a value trigger point. Now, this strategy is one of the most important concepts or powerful concepts that I took from the member research. Some organizations have what I call a value trigger point. Simply, it's the point at which a member realizes the value of their membership or of the organization very early in their membership. Now, let me tell you how I get to this. In member interviews, I'll ask the member, when did you realize the value of the organization? And members will often answer in one of 2 ways. They'll say either, oh, yes, it was at the first annual conference, and or it was at the first webinar I attended, or it was when a staff person called me and helped me. And even after 15 years of membership, I remember that experience. And when they talk about it, it's like a sudden epiphany. It's really amazing. Now, there's a second kind of answer, and the answer is more like, okay, so you're asking me to tell you when I realized the value of the organization. Well, I know the organization is of value, but I suppose that I realized it over time. This organization just kind of grew on me. Now, associations with members who answer like the first group with an enthusiastic, oh, yes, I remember exactly when and what I was doing and how they helped me, those organizations have a value trigger point. Organizations with members like the second group that say, oh, it just grew on me, those organizations do not have a value trigger point. Okay, so does your organization have a value trigger point? Because those folks, the organizations with a value trigger point, have a higher level of engagement for the life of their members' membership. So the sooner we have a member get value from the association, the better, which means you want to discover if you have a value trigger point or if your organization does not. Now, not every organization's value trigger point is the same. For some, it's an event. For some, it's a phone call from staff. For some, it's a webinar. It can be anything that new members find of value after joining. It can be articles, it can be online classes, it can be a lot of different things, but usually organizations just have one. Now, if your organization has a value trigger point, you can start to leverage it. You might not know that you have one, but if you have one, you can use it as a gateway to helping solve your members' next biggest problem, which will get them knowledgeable about other important benefits that you offer them. Now, if your organization does not have a value trigger point, no worries at all, you can develop one. Now, for those of you who think they might want to develop a value trigger point, here's something to keep in mind. Okay, so value trigger points come in 2 flavors depending on the type of member you have. If you have very homogeneous new members, your members are very alike. For example, maybe they come from the same they're at the same career stage, they have a very similar focus, something like that. Your association value trigger point or organizational value trigger point can be content focused, meaning you offer them an academy or a guide or a set of articles or webinars that solve their problem at the stage that they're at. Now, if all of your members are really different, they're very unalike, perhaps they're in the same industry, but they're all from different disciplines, they're from different types of company, they're all at different times in their careers, you might need to consider a very high touch value trigger point. So plan on calls to new members to find out what their problem is and guide them to the right benefits. Or if you work for a really huge organization, you can invest in a marketing automation platform that delivers emails based on member segmenting, promoting the solutions to the problems they're likely having. Okay, so that is the concept of value trigger point. Let's hustle on to our second poll. And what I'd like to ask you here is what is the primary way you communicate with your members? If we could go ahead and launch that poll, that would be fantastic. Okay, what is the primary way you like to communicate with your members? Select the following: email, snail mail, phone, social media, website, or online community. What is the primary way you like to communicate your members? So I'm just going to give maybe just 4 more seconds for everybody to weigh in here. 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's go ahead and close that poll. And if we could take a look at the results, that would be great. Okay, so almost 90%, 87% said it was email. That's the number one way that you like to communicate with members. And this is fairly normal. So let's talk about strategy number 2. Remember I said earlier on that people will join an organization and either they'll test engagement or they'll ignore you. Why? Why, oh why do members automatically start ignoring us? And because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? If they ignore us, they're never going to get any benefit or any value. Why does that happen? Well, it happens because of email. It is the key way we want to communicate with them, but it's also the key way that it can that members can start ignoring us. So again, direct from the interviews, new members are very quick at deciding if emails are for them or not. And I want you to think about your own relationship with email. How many emails do you have in your inbox? Now, when I give this presentation in person, I'll poll the audience, and usually there's one person in the audience of 100 people or so that are at inbox 0, which I totally admire and could never get to that. And then there's usually other people who are somewhere at like 40,000 or 50,000 or 60,000 emails. But most people, I would say 95% of the people in the room, say they're somewhere at 100 or 250 messages in their inbox, either read or unread. And many people say that they're most comfortable when the number of emails in their inbox is above the fold. So what is that, 10, 15 emails? When I say above the fold, I mean they show on one screen without scrolling. So email volume is a huge problem for nearly everybody, including your members. Now, we feel really productive when we can expediently deal with email, and members feel exactly this way too. Now, here is the danger. New members tell me they'll look at roughly 3 to 5 emails from the organization, and then they'll make a unilateral decision whether the emails get filtered into the read category or into the I'll read it later category. And you can imagine the I'll read it later category doesn't happen too often. We only have 3 emails to capture their attention. So we want to make the most out of those first 3 emails. We really want to make those first 3 emails count. So here's a first 3 email plan, some ideas for you. Now, with your first email, you can let members know that you know what their problem is. With another email, you can go ahead and solve their problem. Send them something easy to digest. Make the interaction no more than 3 minutes. Maybe send them a link to an article that other members love. Or you can connect them to your value trigger points. Or you can have them schedule a call with a staff person or another member to make sure that they get access to exactly what they need. So there's some idea. You want to make those first 3 emails count. It's the number one way we have of communicating with our members, and we definitely don't want them to start ignoring us because of our members. Okay, strategy number 3, let's talk about curating networking. Traditional networking is super painful for new members. They talk about it all the time. Receptions or networking time work really well for long-time and engaged members who know other people, but for people who don't know anyone, networking can be absolute torture. Remember the story of our new member. going to the conference for the first time, and then going to the reception, and then awkwardly standing there all alone. It's such a lonely feeling, and maybe even really just outright terrifying for some people. But maybe you're one of those people who can walk into a room with strangers and still feel energized. And even so, members tell me that networking is still difficult. Extroverts tell me that networking requires a lot of luck. So lots of us are working on projects, or we have a goal or a focus or a cause. And maybe we're the only one that we know of who is working on something like this. We're the only ones in our organization. And so when we go to, maybe a chapter meeting or a training course or a conference or some other kind of event, we want to meet people who are thinking and doing the same kinds of things that we're thinking and doing, people like us. And traditional networking and receptions don't usually help us meet the right people. You put 100 people into the room and you might not find the people who are just like us. So how do we cure awkward feelings in the game of chance that is most networking today? Well, with curated networking. Let me give you some quick ideas. Some organizations are creating a buddy system, and they're doing this in a variety of ways. Maybe a one-to-one mentor program, or maybe they're using mentoring panels, or they're pairing up willing past event alumni with new attendees, or they're doing pre-conference online Zoom meetings, or new member online Zoom meetings. Now, if you can't do something as customized or high touch as a buddy or mentor program, some organizations are having luck with new member or new attendee orientations. They're doing orientations online. They're doing orientations, like online in person where everybody sees each other. They're doing it at events. And they're also doing some of it, asynchronously through communities. So you can really do a lot to get new members oriented and also get them meeting each other. Okay, let's conduct another poll, please. If we could launch poll number 3. I'd like to know if you have a member onboarding program. So go ahead and select one of the following. Do you have a member onboarding program? Yes, we've had a plan in place for 4 years. Yes, we've had a plan in place for 1 to 4 years. We're creating our plan now. We want to create an onboarding plan. We do not have a new member onboarding plan yet. So go ahead and vote. Let's close that in just 5 seconds. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's close up that poll and take a quick look at our results. Okay, so most folks either said we do not have a new member onboarding plan, or we want to create a new member onboarding plan. Just a few have had one for more than 4 years, and about 30% are 1 to 4 years or more. So that's great. And 13% are creating their plan now. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so for all of you, I have some really cool stuff for you. There is a study out there that I'd like to bring your attention to called the New Member Engagement Study. Now, if any of the 3 strategies that I've outlined here sounds like something that you'd like to try at your association, maybe it's time to implement or revise your new member onboarding program. The New Member Engagement Study shows that organizations who implement an onboarding program raise their new member renewal rates by 10% on average. Now, again, that's on average. Some organizations raise theirs by 50%. Just think about that. Think about the math and how many more engaged members you'd have if you could engage new members and raise your renewal rates by 10 to 50%. Now, this new member engagement study is a study that I conducted along with dynamic benchmarking. You can grab the report for free, and in it, you're going to learn what channels of communication work best for new members, what kind of frequency to use, and how to measure your efforts, and so much more. Now, we've talked about a lot of things today, and I feel like I've talked really fast. So if I could take the liberty of giving you 3 action items to move forward with after this presentation, the first would be, find out what currently is the first email your new members receive, and what does it look like, what comes next, and maybe even rewrite that first email that new members receive. Next is learn if you have a organizational or association value trigger point. If you do, leverage it to use it as a gateway for the next benefit members should use. If not, you can develop one. And then finally, check out the new member engagement study. You see the shortened URL below. You can just go ahead and grab that report, and then you're going to find a ton of really, really cool things. Okay, so my name is Amanda Kaiser. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you've enjoyed today's presentation, you can find more content just like this on my weekly blog at smooththepath.net. And now I'd like to turn it back to Sonia to see if there's to see what questions you have about new member engagement. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Amanda. So we will just quickly take a few questions. The first question I have here today is, we send out one email to new members right after they join. Should we be sending more emails to new members?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So what we found in the research is one email is not enough. So if your organization is sending out just one email, try in the next couple of weeks to bump it up to 3 emails. You can send those 3 emails in the first 3 weeks or the first week. If a member joins on Monday, you could send them an email Monday, another one Wednesday, and another one Friday, or you can space them out, one email for the first 3 weeks. Ultimately, even a few more emails is super desirable. Members really are very receptive in the first 3 days to 3 weeks of joining to really learning more about your organization. And so they're not going to mind a couple more very quick to read, frictionless emails from you. So go ahead and boost your email rate up a little bit. That would be great.
Okay, great. And just a follow-up question to that. Someone's asked, what if members complain about too many emails? How would you address that?
Yeah, absolutely. So sometimes members are complaining about too many emails, but usually it's not new members. But how new members complain about emails is if you're asking for too much money. So it's not the same for every single organization, but some organizations, members are joining for member benefits, not necessarily to donate. And so if they're joining for member benefits, they want to know that they can get value out of their base membership. And so when an organization immediately starts upselling them to the conference or tries to sell them more research or sell them another event or something like that, they do tend to get a little irritated. So try to make sure that your first, say, 3 to 5 emails to them are you giving value and showing that they can get value from their base membership. And not trying to upsell them, because they'll definitely complain about the frequency of emails if every single email is promotional. And so what a lot of my clients do is they'll actually hold back any promotional emails for 1 to 3 weeks as they're getting all of those value-oriented emails out to members. So you can try that. If new members are complaining about too many emails, make them short to read, and also make sure that they're not promotional, especially in those very influential first couple of weeks.
Awesome. Okay, and another one we have here is, what have you found as most effective timing to send out emails, and is any language more effective? For example, action words, is that more effective language to use?
Yeah, okay. So timing. Okay, so there was an optimal timing for most organizations, for most new members, and that was, 3 emails in the first week, and then weekly after that for the first month, and then monthly for the first until you get to roughly the 7 or 8 month mark or so. So that's sort of the optimal frequency and rate of emails that should be going out. Now, you might want to play with this. Your members might be different. They might want more from you. They might want less for you. But in terms of language, the key thing to keep in mind is, while you might be increasing your frequency and rate of email significantly, you want your email to be really short and sweet. This is just a couple of minute interaction that you are asking for. And what a lot of organizations do is they send lists. welcome to our organization, and now you have access to 37 member benefits, and they'll send a bulleted list of all of those benefits, or they'll send bulleted lists of tons of articles, 15 articles. Members tend to tune all of that out. And so what you want to do is you want to focus on one problem that they're experiencing, one very quick solution. Maybe it's a quick read article that they're just looking at for just a couple of minutes and that they get a lot of value out of. So as you're writing your emails, just think, 3 to 4 sentences, couple of minute interaction, frictionless experience that they're getting value from the organization from.
Great. Okay, and so we've got a few more here. I'll try to get through as many as I can. What system do you use to track new members and batch emails rather than emailing one at a time?
Yeah, that is a really great question. So we asked that question in the new member engagement study, and we came back with 2 very different answers. So there was, I guess actually 3 answers. One was if your AMS, like at WildApricot, has that capability, there can be some kind of, email automation software in there. And if it has that capability, great to use that. Other organizations buy some kind of email automation software. And then there are organizations that do it very much manually through Excel. They kind of keep a spreadsheet of what emails go out this week, and they do it through Excel. So there's quite a range to how you can keep track of this. And if your existing technology allows you to do that, that's wonderful.
Okay, great. And any suggestions on how to determine the value trigger point?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's 2 great questions to ask, and that is when you're not necessarily in a survey, but when you're talking to members either face to face or on the phone, take some time and just say, hey, is our organization of value to you? And then ask them why, and then ask the question. When did you realize the value of our organization? And listen very carefully to the answers. If your members keep coming back with roughly speaking the same answer, oh, it was this moment, oh, it was this thing you did, oh, it was your webinar, your article, or whatever, where you're seeing that pattern in the responses is where you have an association value trigger point. It might be a benefit of yours, or it might be something you're doing. You might be calling members, and that's it. Something. But you're just looking for a pattern in the answers. I don't like to send out surveys because surveys make you ask a forced choice answer. So I like to actually ask and let them reply to whatever it is to give them the universe of opportunities. And then again, like I said, you're just looking for the pattern in the answers. If you see a pattern after asking this question, say 15 or 20 times, then you have an association value trigger point. If you have no pattern in the answers, there's no association value trigger point.
Awesome. Okay, thank you so much, Amanda, for answering all those questions for us, and as well as thank you to everyone who answered questions in the chat. That was great. So, Amanda, I want to thank you so much for sharing your experience and advice with us today. That was a great way to understand how we can better engage our members, and I'm sure our audience found that very helpful as well. Now, as I mentioned, we are going to share the recording with you in a follow-up email within the next day or 2. So everyone look out for that. And now that we're coming to the end of the webinar, I want to quickly mention that if you're new to WildApricot or have questions for us, I'll cover some free resources and offers in just a moment. Okay, so if you're new to WildApricot, I want to let you know that you can find more free educational content on our Academy page. Stephen is going to paste the link in the chat for that. And this is where you can find more webinars, including recordings of all our past webinars that are on there. So I highly recommend you take a look at the resources and content on our blog and articles. There's lots of helpful content there about growing your membership, running successful events, recruiting volunteers, and so on. And all of that content is free. And lastly, if you're running a membership organization, whether that's a nonprofit, association, or club, or any type of organization, organization, you are welcome to try our software at no cost for 30 days. So feel free to take advantage of that opportunity, especially if you're looking to automate a lot of the tasks that consume your life. So Stephen's also going to paste the chat link in the chat window now, and you can just click on the link you see there and you'll be taken to our website where you can enter your email, name, and organization name, and you're ready to go with your free trial. Also, if you'd like to receive a call from one of our coaches, just email coaches@wildapricot.com and one of our coaches will get in touch with you to schedule a call. And Stephen's going to paste the email in the chat window now. Okay, so if you have any questions about WildApricot and you're able to stick around for a few minutes, I'm going to pass the mic over to Stephen, who will be able to help you and answer any questions you may have, because we do always get a lot of questions about our software whenever we do a webinar. So if you have any questions about WildApricot, I'm sending Stephen over now. Thank you, everyone.
All right, hi there everybody. Thank you for attending today's webinar. I do hope you found the information helpful, and I'm here now just to answer any questions you have about the WildApricot software itself. So feel free to start submitting your questions here. And just before we jump into those, I just do want to also mention, if you have any questions about the CAE certificates or past presentations you've attended or anything like that, please feel free to send a quick email to sales@wildapricot.com and we'll direct that on to the appropriate people and make sure you get your answer. So now, one of the most common questions that we get, and actually something that's quite applicable here, is whether or not you can send out those automated emails using the WildApricot system. And I can confirm that it is possible. So it depends on what kind of emails you want to send out, because you've got quite a few options available to you. For one, you could send out membership renewal reminders, for instance, say 30 days before someone's renewal date, 10 days before, maybe even on their renewal date. And that just lets the member know, hey, you know, we really want to see you again. Hope you're considering renewing this year, and encourages them to come back and renew their subscription. You can even enable automatic recurring payments to make sure the payments come in automatically, and then your emails can simply just be a, you know, hey, just letting you know it's another year coming up, and please feel free to keep your membership going. So another email or another question that we've gotten here is there a way to print out membership cards en masse instead of one at a time? So at the moment, the membership cards are designed more to be a self-service function for your members. So they would log into their profile, the card will appear there, and they can print it from there. But from the administrator view, it would be printed off one at a time as it stands. Now, if you're trying to print membership badges or something like that, we have a workaround that you can use with Microsoft Mail Merge, and that's described on our help site, gethelp.wildapricot.com. You would export the information you need to a spreadsheet, load that spreadsheet into Mail Merge, and it's pretty easy to create bulk cards from there. Our help guide will walk you through every step of that process. Another question that we get quite frequently is whether or not it's possible to embed WildApricot into an existing website. It's pretty common for people to have a website already, and even though WildApricot does have a built-in website builder, maybe you don't want to build a new website right now. So that's totally all right. You can bring over the key functionality like our membership application forms, member profiles, event registration forms, things like that. And you can just forward that right into your existing website using an embeddable iframe link. And that just, it's really nothing too technical. It's just copying and pasting, and it brings everything directly into the existing website, and it looks rather seamless to your members. So you get all that functionality that WildApricot offers without needing to leave your current website. So Mike, thank you for your feedback. I will pass it along, and then if we have any other questions in the meantime about the software itself, just please feel free to fire them my way, and I'll keep them going. Can you edit membership fields to include an optional donation? Yes, I would say you can. Now, this would be considered a membership extra cost field. So under members and then membership fields, when you go to add a new field, you're going to see there's quite a few available to you. You can have as many as you'd like, in fact. Text fields, multiple choice, whatever you want. A few of those options are multiple choice with extra charge, where someone can select multiple options with each one adding an extra cost, or radio buttons with extra charge, where they can just choose one option, or just a field where they directly enter the amount they'd like to pay. And that can be especially useful for donations in this case. Now, it'll be tracked in the membership invoice, and it'll be part of the membership fees as far as the accounting goes, but it lets you, that workaround lets you achieve that workflow of receiving a donation. If you have any questions about that or you want to see how it works, feel free to pop over to the help site, gethelp.wildapricot.com. And actually, I'll put a quick link to that here in the chat. gethelp.wildapricot.com, and I believe the help page is called Extra Membership Costs, and it'll guide you through everything you need to know there. And if you have any questions, if you're on a paid account and you have any questions about getting that set up, feel free to contact our support team directly at support@wildapricot.com. They'd be happy to walk you through it. And if you don't have an account yet, you can contact us at coaches@wildapricot.com, and we'll get you started with that. All right, so another very common question that we get is just whether or not you can easily engage with your event attendees after they've signed up for an event. So let's say they've come to your event, you've got the attendance list logged in WildApricot, and now you just want to send them a follow-up, but maybe you only want to send that follow-up to people who actually attended. So for one, you can track attendance in WildApricot for each of your events, and that can actually be done both on the desktop view and the mobile app that we have. So you just check in people as they show up, and you've got your attendance list generated. Then, after the event, you would go to your WildApricot backend, head over to the registration list, and you can filter it to those who have checked in, i.e. attended the event. And once that list has been filtered, you can click Email Registrants up at the top of the page, and that will let you send an email specifically to those who have attended. You can thank them for attending the event, maybe try to get them to sign up for membership if this is, if there were non-members attending your events as well. It's a great way to do some follow-up engagement. All right, so I'll give you guys a couple more, maybe 10, 20 more seconds here to get a few more questions in. I know it's probably been a bit of a long one for you, and you probably have a lot of other stuff to do, but I'm happy to answer any other questions that you have. Don't worry, there's nothing too important on the screen right now. We're just, it's just basically a live Q&A. And again, I want to confirm that after this webinar, you will receive a recording. And if you don't get it for some reason, just contact us at sales@wildapricot.com. We'll make sure we get it to you. It'll go out in the next day or two. There was one comment, I believe, that mentioned that sometimes it misses their inbox, and that can happen with email. It may go to the junk folder or something like that. We want to make sure you get this information, and it's free. So just contact us at sales@wildapricot.com, and we'll get it to you. All right, well, thanks so much, everybody, for coming out. Again, I hope this was all very, very useful for you. And if you have any questions, please feel free to get in touch. We'll be here for you. Take care.